On the 26th of December 2004, the second largest earthquake ever recorded on a seismograph, between 9.1 and 9.3 in magnitude, took place under the Indian Ocean off the western coast of Sumatra. Over 8 minutes in duration, the quake was also the longest lasting, as well as the 8th deadliest natural disaster ever recorded. It triggered a number of tsunamis that became known in some parts of the world as the Asian tsunami and in others as the Boxing Day tsunami. Following the sudden vertical rise of the seabed, the waters receded from the shores of such countries as Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka and Thailand, and then poured back in with devastating effects. Like all tsunamis, the phenomenon behaved very differently in shallow water than it did in deep water. Far out at sea, the waves moved quickly and were small and hardly noticeable. But the massive displacement of water in the shallows nearer the shoreline slowed the tsunami's speed considerably and resulted in a succession of huge waves, which rolled inland in roughly 30-minute cycles. The third was the biggest and the most cataclysmic, with waves up to 30 meters high destroying towns and villages and traveling up to 2 kilometers inland. The force of the waves was calculated to be the equivalent of 5 megatons of TNT. That's over twice the entire explosive force used during all of the Second World War, including the atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The 1,600-kilometer fault line stretched from north to south, so the waves with the greatest impact were the ones travelling to the east and west. This meant that countries like Bangladesh, which is a low-lying country at the northern end of the Bay of Bengal, and therefore quite near to the quake's epicenter, reported only 2 deaths after the capsize of a tourist boat. Other countries were not so lucky, and distance was no guarantee of safety. Somalia, 4,500 kilometers away on the northeastern coast of Africa, lost nearly 300 people, and a further 5,000 were displaced. The worst-hit country was Indonesia. While exact numbers of casualties are impossible to gauge, original estimates put the number of deaths at around 170,000. Although in 2005, the Indonesian health minister updated that total to 220,000. In the northern provincial capital of Banda Aceh, one of the hardest hit areas, there were 30,000 deaths. The casualties in India, Thailand and Sri Lanka also numbered in the thousands, with the overall estimated loss of life near to 300,000 and within the vicinity of 1.7 million people losing their homes. Unable to resist the force of the water, children made up at least a third of the casualties, while relief agencies reported that 4 times as many women were killed as men, as they waited on beaches for their fishermen husbands to return. Tourists also suffered badly, with Europe particularly affected. Sweden and Germany confirmed over 500 deaths each. Amongst those dead were 14-year-old Lucy Holland, the granddaughter of English film director Richard Attenborough, and the fashion photographer Simon Attlee. Brazil lost its diplomat, Lise Ameo de Benedicte Davola, who, with her young son, died in Phi, Thailand. Amongst all the horror, though, there were some amazing stories of courage, resilience, and quick thinking. Before the tsunami hit northern Phuket in Thailand, a 10-year-old British schoolgirl called Tilly Smith spotted the warning signs of the receding ocean and, remembering her geography lessons, alerted her parents to the danger. They raised the alarm and everyone on the beach was safely evacuated. Because the effects of the disaster were felt on such a global scale and the news images were so horrifying, the amount of aid sent to the stricken areas was unprecedented, amounting to $7 billion. But the physical, psychological and political ramifications were so profound that while relief was swift and for the most part well orchestrated, the recovery process will stretch on for decades.
Three, two, one.